It's time to turn down the noise and tune in to News You Can Use, the show that gives you a quick insight into the latest twists and turns in healthcare news, where every diagnosis comes with an order of side-splitting humor. Your hosts are Dr. Nick, a longtime host, innovator, and healthcare wizard who can prescribe a digital dose of innovation to cure even the most ailing operational inefficiencies. And Dr. Craig Joseph, the healthcare guru who can diagnose both patient and software glitches with equal precision, making sure hospitals run smoother than a well-oiled robot doc. So buckle up, because we're diving into the ER of excitement, the ICU of irrationality, and the waiting room of wacky wisdom. Now here's Dr. Nick and Dr. Craig.
Welcome to the month of October. I'm Dr. Nick.
And I'm Dr. Craig.
This week, we will be dissecting the latest healthcare news, unraveling the twists and turns, and making sense of debacles, but nothing about the election.
Just remember, life's a lot like a breaking news story. Unpredictable, often absurd, and occasionally leaves you wondering if it's all just a cosmic prank, especially the elections.
This week, we take a look at the health conference, which apparently has been sold, IV shortages.
And we'll also dive into AI training and GLP-1 drugs, which may be a cure for everything.
First off this week, we're talking about fully automating everything with AI. And this was my topic. This was something I wanted to talk about. There seems to be this notion, and we'll get to the GLP one because the same notion seems to be there as well. It's a cure-all for everything. Throw this technology out and it's going to do all sorts of amazing things. And to be clear, I think you and I both agree on this. We agree on some things, but the solution has done some amazing things. I've certainly had value. I use it for all sorts of various things, sometimes successfully, other times not. But the idea that it can be, I want to say, unsupervised, or you can just use it and, so nothing I ever use when I use these technologies ever goes out without my own personal review. But there are some instances now of this integration of AI into healthcare that is essentially promising to automate all sorts of things, but without any kind of scrutiny. So I believe there's a new tool, I think it was called Whisper, if I recall, that I read about, that is just based on the name, listening into what's going on, and then generating some content as a result of this that then becomes, I'm going to say, actionable. I could be misspeaking, but just to be clear, and the idea that this would be appropriate in the healthcare setting seems completely absurd to me. And the idea that you can then self-correct, and this notion came up in a discussion that I was in recently online, talking about self-correction and using AI to correct itself. Can I just say that's the most meta thing, not in the Facebook sense, to be clear, but the, triple kick into your dreams idea of, oh my God, let's correct the errors that were generated by technology.
It's recursive. Yeah.
This is the infinity mirror, is it not?
Well, there's no end to how, because then you'll have a third AI
correcting the correction.
The second AI, which is looking at the first AI. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Where will it end is the question, and I don't know. But it's exciting to be along for the ride, and in terms of,
that's only if your records aren't affected by this. I'm going to say,
what does Biden say? Don't compare me to something along. I'm paraphrasing. Don't compare me to God. Compare me to the other guy. Right. And so, with respect to errors in the medical record.
So wait, you're comparing against me? Is that your benchmark here?
No,
that's a low bar. I'm just going to say.
Yeah, I was just going to say no. I'm comparing to an,
thanks a lot.
I'm comparing to your average physician, not someone like you.
Yeah,
And now you
inferior
could
me.
take
I
that.
got
You
it.
could take that. in
Yeah,
many
I
different
know.
ways.
I know.
No, but so your first of all, your concerns are valid. So let's be clear what we're talking about, right? I think in this instance, we're talking about having a microphone in the clinical exam room. We're kind of thinking about your outpatient clinic and the doctor and the patient or the people in the room. So it could be patient and a spouse or parents and a child. So all of them essentially being recorded and an AI transcribing it, creating a transcription of who said what, when, and how, and then summarizing that for what we would typically call a progress note. And
this is great. I love this also.
This is awesome. This is
Yeah.
awesome. And your concern, I think, is, or one of your concerns is that, well, the AI is going to make a mistake and document something that is the opposite of what was said, or just make something completely up. And, the patient was very concerned about X when X never actually was mentioned, those kinds of things. And that's valid. We know it happens. And then to kind of decrease the chances of that happening, you're talking about a second AI that is listening and looking at which.
Do you hear yourself?
This seems to be. I was at a conference a couple weeks ago where this very idea of having there's another term for it, but having a second AI looking at the first to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. That's a real thing. It's meta, of course, but it's not just made up. It's a real thing.
This is a specialized AI that's absolutely that's what it was trained for.
If I were to ask you, well, how does this AI work? No one really knows how these AIs work, right? And no one's ever gonna. I think we're beyond the point of being able to simulate. We know.
Ruh-roh.
Yeah. Well, so the question is, the number of errors ultimately you got to imagine will be low, and B, is that okay? Some would say no, it's got to be error free. Others, and I think I'm probably closer in the second camp, is, well, is it as good or better than what we do today, which is a physician writing a note? Usually they're dictating a note or using a template and, with a bunch of stuff kind of popping in, which is better. And I suspect, maybe not today, but in the near future, 6 months, 12 months from now, it's not even going to be close that the ambient listening device will do a better job of getting a progress note together. And
but to be fair, I don't disagree with that. I think even today, I don't think you even need to wait 6 months. I think it's
fair.
Absolutely supremely better, but it does come with some aspects to it that sort of the errors. And this was something I spent my life focused on speech recognition, and the significance of it is or is not, for example, which was a huge deal. And it was actually kind of difficult because those small words were often the ones that, we got wrong or would be gotten wrong by that technology. And, I think the idea that something else can go and then check it, it just reminds me of the known unknowns. We don't know the known unknowns and how you can. I struggle with it. Now, that is not me anti the techno. I think it's fantastic. I think it brings huge value. People should be using it. And just for equal opportunity approaches. There are multiple players in this space that have this, concurrent listening, I'm going to call it, because otherwise you're using a product name. And they generate some fantastic content that can then be used. But the idea that it requires little to no supervision and, this is all just dumping it, that's a struggle for me. That's all.
Well, but no one has said that yet. And so that's the difference between the reality and the, no one is saying like, I don't believe I've ever heard anyone say, oh, hey, this is good. Just, it just goes into the record. It's done. You have
beep, back the truck up. Have you not seen the notes?
That's me.
That come with the subtext at the bottom. This note has been generated by, in this case, speech recognition, and has not been reviewed, so any errors are not my fault.
Yes.
Words to that effect.
Yes.
So, I don't know.
But it doesn't. So you can, yeah. So I've seen that. I've dictated but not read. That's the classic line, which to me is just kind of
generated but not read. There we go.
I've done this operation, but I was sleeping through part of it, so I can't be held accountable for the part that I was sleeping through. Hey, buddy, you're responsible. So we all know you're actually signing the note. Yeah. You're signing the note, and you're responsible for the note. And you saying that I didn't read the note is great, but that's not going to absolve you of your responsibility. And we do know for sure that people are not going to read the notes, or they're going to read the notes. I think what most of us would probably do is look at it and go, yep. Actually,
the really smart people are taking it, putting it into their own version of an LLM, not to throw out content into the public domain, and asking the AI to summarize it, which it actually does a really good job.
Oh, summarizing a transcript. Well, yeah. But that's that. I still think, and I said this like a year and a half ago. Like I think the future is that we're just going to record everything, we're going to store everything. So the transcript will be there, and
here he is. He's back on his dark mirror, black mirror.
Yeah, well, because storage is cheaper and cheaper. We'll just store it, and then you'll just have everyone will have their own AI to evaluate it. And because what the cardiologist wants to know about what happened at that visit is different than what the lawyer wants to know, which is different than what the payer wants to know. And if we all just look at if we have the transcript and say, well, the transcript is, or the recording is what actually happened, we have the recording and we'll have it forever, then a lot of these problems kind of go by the wayside. Now, the obvious statement, well, oh my gosh, you're going to record every single interaction that you have with a clinician.
I'm just going to say, Black Mirror, the entire history of you. It was a fantastic episode.
Yeah,
it was.
But why are we not going towards this? Like, that seems where
I think we might be, but it comes with a few challenges. All right, so
it does.
Moving on, there was, tied in with AI is the whole concept of training. I think there's a number of lawsuits ongoing, right, with folks that have said, "Hey, you've used my content." There's the artists that are truly concerned about it. That was part of the Hollywood deal, was to make sure that they would still get credit, I guess. In the case of the strike of the ports, there was one of the fundamentals was you can't introduce the technology, which feels a little bit Luddite-like, but at the same time, you've got folks saying, "Hey, we should just have access to everything and be allowed to train and tough luck," kind of thing. Although, how do you attribute might be a challenge, but hey, some of my content, not that I'm very creative, so maybe I don't care. What do you think?
It's complicated. That's what I think. Well, people who are creators, and so we're talking about musicians and actors and authors. They have copyrighted and trademarked and done all the legal things to protect their work. And no one should be able to profit off of that outside of the laws in every country. And so I don't know how you can disagree. Well, I guess I do know how you can disagree with that. So the question is, if I create an AI and it's scouring your work, such that I can now ask that AI to create a painting in that's similar to, or it's to give an artist. Is that okay? Is that within the law? And I don't think we know yet. We're in the middle of this, but we know that they've hoovered up, to use that term. The AI companies have gotten all of this information and are leveraging it. And so, how do you pay people for their work? That's the question. And I don't think most of us, although some maybe we'll talk about, I think most of us say, no, those you should be reimbursed for that. The question is how should you be reimbursed for that? And right now,
Yeah.
no one's being reimbursed. Well, I shouldn't say no one.
I'm going to say I think part of the problem is that we have this fair use doctrine, which the principle of which applied 20 years ago when fair use was, even in the case of digital, you couldn't replicate and really generate this fantastic new content based on inverted commas fair use. But now, in the age of this AI, and particularly generative AI and LLM, that for me feels like maybe there's something in there that potentially needs to be changed or updated as a result of it. Because I agree. I mean, if I had genuine content that people want to use, and perhaps they are, who knows, maybe some of the stuff that I've written or posted, I don't know, but I don't have as much vested in it, but I do absolutely buy it that we should, and this idea that we just open up the doors and allow, but at the same time we don't want to limit innovation. But
so far, just for the audience, let me be clear: we're 0 for 2 in terms of solving problems.
I didn't know you kept score, because
I did.
Have we ever solved anything?
We're 0 for 2 on solving problems.
Okay, all right. Well, the next one we're not going to solve, but just to me, it was kind of interesting that health has already been sold. It didn't take long. I think you were especially interested in this. This was a really critical announcement for you. Is that right?
That is the opposite of truth. When you say health has been sold, I think we need some context around that.
Oh, yes, yeah. HLTH, the conference. That's right.
The conference, HLTH, that the insiders say pronounces health.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. The thing is what? 8 years old, 10 years old. It's not a very old conference.
No, it is not.
And it's it's kind of focused on innovation and startups and technology in healthcare, and it got sold. I don't know if it means anything to the people that go to the conference, or if it will just be.
I'm just going to say it's going to get more expensive and less interesting, maybe.
Yeah, if it gets more, it's just so expensive as it is.
Right.
It's hard to imagine it getting more expensive and people still continuing to go. But this is another one that we're not going to solve because it doesn't require any solution. But yeah,
there is no solution.
Some folks made some money, and good on them. And we'll see what happens to the conference. People like going to meetings and talking.
I think they like going to meetings because other people are paying for them to go. Is my
all right. Yeah. That's true, especially when they're.
I think that's a key element to it.
Yeah. I still think we're kind of recovering from the shock of the pandemic, where we all were stuck in our houses for such a long time.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. I remember the first one I went to, which I think still had mask and testing even, which was it was the walk of shame in the room when you got tested positive and taken into a back. It was, I gotta say, the whole experience was a bit hellacious, and thankfully I didn't test positive. But boy, you saw those people, and I'm thinking, I mean, we didn't know, but let's be clear, it was pretty obvious that was what was going on. And whoa, that's a tough pill to swallow.
Yep.
No, thankfully we're past that.
My first health HLTH conference, or maybe my only one, was in Boston. Was that the one? And it was. I definitely remember them sticking Q-tips up our noses before we walked in. And
welcome to this fantastic.
Welcome. Show us your proof of vaccination, and we're going to stick a Q-tip up your nose now, and then sit in this holding area until we decide that you're okay.
Yeah. All right. Running out of time, so we better race through some of this. Am I the only one that feels like GLP-1 drugs are listing as a cure for all? I mean, it's like, not just diabetes, cardiovascular, heart failure, but we've got, recurrent notions of Parkinson's, liver, non-alcoholic fatty liver. I mean, it's extraordinary. Is this? Am I missing something? Should I be taking this drug, Craig?
We're going to put it in the water. It'll be in all the. It'll be next to fluoride. And we'll all be
and
super.
statins.
I don't know. We'll see.
I know several cardiologists that wanted to do that.
But they never did. But who knows? We don't need those statins. We have these GLP-1 things.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Replaced.
Yeah.
Replace the fluoride. It will cure your teeth.
Oh, maybe you don't even need fluoride. I like it. Maybe you don't need to eat. Just take one of these things. We obviously the science is not in, but it's starting, and it just does. You can say, as I have, well, how can you be sure that it's helping the heart? Or maybe it's just, where you're losing weight and we know that will help the heart, and maybe it's a secondary effect. And,
right. Good point.
And, we're trying to isolate that so that you can study and make sure that, no, this is because of the medication and not because of anything else. But it's difficult. But all of these, I agree with you. It's just, wow, there's so many studies that you're like, okay, how does this have to do with fatty liver? Like, this is.
And it would be great if it was. I got to say, I'm a little bit skeptical. Part of me wonders, is this soma, as in, the infamous book that we're trying to get everybody on, and, I not to be a sensationalist or try and sort of throw anything under the bus, because to be clear, I saw some fantastic news around this. I think for the first time ever, we've seen a reduction in weight for the US population. That's the first time we've turned that corner in many, many years. That's fantastic news. So,
we'll see. It's just the science. This is the problem we ran again to bring us down to the pandemic. One study says one thing, and people are like, "There you go, it's done."
Right.
And then next week, another study comes out and says the opposite, and people are like, "Well, this is not real." And
you can't trust science. Oh my God!
And you're like, "Well, no, this is how science works.
That's how it
right?
Works,
this is exactly how it's supposed to work." And that's where we're at now. So certainly too early to judge, but the preliminary studies are just kind of awe-inspiring, and it'll be interesting for us 10 or 15 or 20 years from now. We'll be like, oh, that's what was happening. Oh, that's how that worked. But we don't know that now. We just don't know.
I hope we get to that point. All right. So just closing minutes, talk briefly about the IV shortages. I don't know what your sort of exposure to this. I've certainly seen a fair amount of this. I mean, it's highly significant. I want to say it was like 60, 70%, unfortunately, taken out with the Baxter plant in, I think it was South Carolina with Helene, the event there. It's having an impact. I think there's still supplies and there's, a lot of mitigation. What I thought was interesting, and much like the pandemic did, it actually made us rethink some of the things that we do. And I was schooled in this. I had not heard the term KVO. Maybe you had. You probably grew up with it, right? This is a very much no. I was going to say an American thing. It's not. That's not fair. It's not. We abbreviate in the UK as well, but your abbreviations are different. For those that don't know, keep vein open. And I was, okay, that makes sense, but never saw that ever. And that was one of the reasons, put up a bag of saline, to keep the vein open so that you had access, but now much less of that. And I thought the most interesting, and this was, particularly around pediatrics, they're changing the pre-op, because that's one of the places where, IV is a challenge, and bringing, in this case, I was hearing kids, because there's a more of a problem with children, bringing them in slightly earlier, so at 2 hours, but not making them nil by mouth, and not allowed to eat or drink anything at an hour and a half out. But for that half hour that they're in, they're pounding down whatever they can get into them. So juice, Gatorade, whatever. And then, so oral is the new IV, as it were. Now they still need the IVs, but they're using them less, which, I think these are all good things, because did we really need to stick people, recognizing, hey, that the IV that you didn't put in is the one that you wanted when you need it urgently, right?
Yeah, this is the great thing is that we have these huge plants and we are manufacturing things to be ready just in time, so they don't have to sit in a warehouse. And the bad thing is when that plant goes down, we're stuck. And we saw this in Puerto Rico with certain medications as well. Actually more than maybe 7-8 years ago. So yeah, it's a difficult thing, but I do agree with you. If it allows us to reassess the things that we've been doing for a long time, to go like, we really don't need to do this, and it's going to save money and it's going to decrease problems, then it's the benefit is there. I'd still rather that the Baxter plant not go down. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And not advocating for not having it, because when you need it, that's always the most difficult time to actually obtain it. But at the same time, rethinking that is, I was always hesitant to say the silver lining of the pandemic, but there were a number of them. I mean, we learned some things and, rethought, certainly I did personally, so it was all good. But unfortunately, we find ourselves at the end of another episode exploring healthcare's mysteries before they become your emergencies. Until next time, I'm Dr. Nick.
And I'm Dr. Craig.